Hello, folks, and welcome to Grab a Stack of Rock and 50 Years of Iron Maiden. Today, we have a special episode to discuss Visions of the Beast, the two DVD anthology of Maiden music videos, and we have a special guest with us today. We have Bob Cesca from Camp Chaos, who actually did 6 videos on this DVD set. But I think for the sake of the layman out there, you might know him best for something we call Napster Bad.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. This is great. I'm so happy to talk about this. I actually haven't watched the videos maybe in 20 years, and I checked them out today again, and it's almost like going back and seeing old yearbook photos of yourself. I can't believe I let my hair go like that. I can't believe I went out of the house with my hair looking like that. Yeah, but it's a great honor to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Well, thank you for saying it's a great honor, but I just
Hmm.
I want to know something just right off the bat so people can get to know you a bit. But you started out in political science. You studied political science in school. You still
Yes.
do a lot of political commentary. How did you make that jump from studying poli-sci in school to making music videos for metal bands?
It's a long, long story, but cutting to the chase, what happened was I was always studying politics with the aim of going into journalism and radio and things like that, which I did. And in the process of being in radio, I didn't really like being, I eventually landed in top 40 radio, which I absolutely hated. The program director made me change my name to something stupid, and it was just a miserable experience. And I had a friend who was working on the internet and said, "Hey, why don't you come and work for my company? We're doing an internet magazine." And this was maybe sometime in the mid to late 90s. And in the process of doing that, we discovered this software called Flash. And I started making cartoons using that software to use as content for the website we were working on. And so, long story short, I started making more and more cartoons as time went on, doing less journalism, less politics, and more cartoons in this capacity, in this job. And that's how I ended up starting Camp Chaos, maybe around, I think my first day as doing Camp Chaos full time was the beginning in 1999. And then by 2000, that's when I was doing, that's when I did the Napster Bad cartoon when Metallica sued Napster foolishly. And so I relentlessly made fun of Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield. And that was that. And that kind of got me onto the radar of a lot of other recording artists. And so that was a big deal for me. And among those was, I think I did a lot of work with Yes, which is one of my favorite bands. And one of my other favorite bands was Iron Maiden. And I was fortunate enough to get that phone call. So that's kind of how I made that transition. It was just one of these sidelines that came along just because of the existence of the internet and because I had some capacity to be able to draw and I was into filmmaking and cartoons and things like that. So it was something that I could do, but it wasn't ever in the plans.
So one thing you said that surprised me is that you were doing Camp Chaos full time before the viral video, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. But
Yeah.
at what point did the realization hit you that, hey, this video just went viral? It's a big thing that people are talking about.
Yeah, it was crazy at the time. I don't know if you remember, but around 1999, 2000, it was the dot-com boom. And I was part of a circle of other Flash animators who we all knew, we were all friends and we knew each other. And among them was this guy, Joe Cartoon, who had done Frog in a Blender and Gerbil in a Microwave and things like that. And there were a bunch of other guys. And it got to the point where they were all having these huge viral cartoons. I know Joe had a number of successful cartoons. I was like, well, when am I going to have my shot at this? And so I was making cartoons and they were doing pretty well. I was able to make a living off of that stuff. But when May of 2000 rolled around, I just decided to do a silly thing that literally took me 2 days to animate, and that was Napster Bad, because I could kind of do a Lars voice, which I had done before in a different cartoon. And then when that lawsuit came down, when he showed up outside the Napster headquarters with the stacks and stacks of names of all the Napster users who were trading Metallica's music, I decided, well, okay, I'm going to do a cartoon about this because I can do the voice. And so a couple of days later, I put the cartoon online and didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, we'll see what happens with this. And I posted the cartoon on a Wednesday, and by Friday morning, I went down to my basement, which is where my studio was, and checked my email. And I had all these emails, and I went to check the website, and I couldn't get to the website. And then my phone started ringing, and it was the ISP that hosted my website, which was Camp Chaos. And the guy on the other end of the line from the ISP was just screaming at me because apparently that cartoon, Napster Bad, shut down their entire network. They could, none of the other websites that they hosted were accessible because of all the traffic to the Napster Bad cartoon, which was both terrible and exciting all at once. I finally had a viral cartoon, but at that point, no one could see it because it shut down the website. So then the mad scramble to find another place, a bunch of mirror sites to help me host the cartoon so that people could still download it, because, that was the double-edged sword. Is you have a big viral success, but yet no one can actually see the thing. So it was an incredible summer. It was 25 years ago this summer. So it was it was the time of my life, but it was also very stressful too.
So just for a frame of reference, he's 25.
Yeah, for our younger audience members.
Wow. Okay, Harrison. Yes, when you were a fetus, I was doing this cartoon. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, for our younger audience members, there was no YouTube around this time as well. It was a bit, certainly, and social media was in its infancy, so it was a lot harder to go viral. There was one time in a show with Mike, Bob, that I said, way back in 2018. And at that point, it was only 6 years ago. And Mike's just like, way back in 2018.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was long before social media. In fact, the internet felt so much smaller 25 years ago, where there were maybe half a dozen of us who were doing Flash cartoons. And because of the .com boom, all the studios, Hollywood and everything were just throwing all of that crazy monopoly money at us most of the time, we didn't actually produce any cartoons. We ended up getting these guaranteed contracts to make these websites a bunch of cartoons. They paid us, but then they went out of business before they could ever put any cartoons online. So it was just, what a crazy time. Harrison, I was turning 30 around then. So it was a hell of a period of time. And I don't think that thing can ever come again. I mean, YouTube is so saturated with content that it seems so expansive, but then it was very, very limited.
I don't remember where I first saw it. It might have been on like E-Bombs World or one of those old websites.
Probably, yeah. For a period of time, I don't know if you know the film company Troma, but they did Toxic Avenger and Tromeo and Juliet and all those B movies. For a period of time there, that summer, Napster Bad was hosted on Troma. In fact, I think the whole Camp Chaos website moved to the Troma server. So that was my connection with all those movies.
That rings a bell.
So a number of different locations for that cartoon. And then I did a bunch of sequels to it, where I did a sort of a cops spinoff called Metallicops, where Lars and James are patrolling the streets for any Napster users. And then there was We Are the World. I did a We Are the World parody where it was Sue All the World and all the recording artists wanting to sue. But you know what? It's weird to look back at that cartoon, and I want to go off on a tangent too much, but I don't know how to feel about the posture I took on that, because ultimately Napster and streaming music ended up kind of ruining the music industry. I mean, it hasn't been the same since digital came along, since file sharing came along. And I don't think they've even, to this day, even figured it out.
So this is how good a guest Bob is. He's already anticipated 3 questions. Harrison wanted to know.
Sorry. Oh, I hate it when people do that to me.
That's okay. Harrison wanted to know, how Maiden got in contact. Apparently, you got a phone call. I wanted to know if Napster was the wave of the future. We kind of touched on that. And I wanted to talk about Metallicops. But I guess maybe just to sort of steal Harrison's question, I do kind of want to know, like, did somebody who called you from Maiden, was it like Rod Smallwood or somebody that we would have heard of?
No, initially, and boy, I've been racking my brain trying to remember her name, but she was the website director at ironmaiden.com. And she initially got in touch with me, but also, and the name I do remember is Dave Pattenden, who was working for Sanctuary Records at the time. He's gone on. He did Beyond. He helped Beyond the Lighted Stage, the Rush documentary, and a bunch of other projects. I think he did the music video for. Oh, he did a couple of Iron Maiden music videos at that period of time, Dance of Death and the Brave New World period of time. And so it was the two of them who got in touch with me. And that was how the contact was first made. And I forget if it was a phone call or an email, but it was some form of contact there in 2000. I think it was kind of late 2000. And it was just a thrill of a lifetime. And my history with Iron Maiden goes all the way back to, I think my first Maiden album was Somewhere in Time. And I just fell in love with that band. It was Wasted Years. Wasted Years was the first song that I heard, the first video I saw on MTV. And they just became my favorite band. And I remember, in fact, in art class, I couldn't stop drawing Eddie. It drove my art teacher crazy in high school. I was doing nothing but Eddie drawings and Iron Maiden drawings. And in fact, one of the assignments that we had to do was draw yourself in, and this was 1988, so I was 16, 17 years old. Draw yourself in 15 years what you're going to be doing for a living. And I drew myself standing at an art table drawing an Iron Maiden album cover. And it wasn't an album cover that I ended up doing, but I ended up doing this other thing where I was being paid to draw pictures of Eddie. And it's just the serendipity of that, the good fortune of that isn't lost on me.
To coin a pun, you were quite clairvoyant there, weren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the actual experience of meeting the band too was an incredible trip, because the next step of that process was they flew me out to London to meet the band, to talk with Bruce, and I met Rod and everybody. And it was the absolute thrill of a lifetime. My only regret is I was horribly jet lagged. And I just remember the entire weekend being half asleep. It was London in January 2001. So it was rainy and cold, and I felt like I was just in this twilight sleep the whole time. In fact, I was so sleepy that I overslept and missed my return flight from Heathrow back to Philadelphia at the time. Oh my God, if you want to hear a couple of the stories from meeting the band, it was, talk about the thrill of a lifetime. That was it. I got to talk with Bruce a couple of times. One was in the lounge at Sanctuary Records. They were in the process of recording Dance of Death. They had just come off the Brave New World tour. They were ramping up to start doing Dance of Death. And so the first time I was talking to Bruce in the lounge, and he was going over some of his ideas, and we were talking about what we wanted to see in these videos. And he had actually, I still have them somewhere. He had actually drawn out some things, made some notes on a legal pad, which I, of course, kept. But the funny Bruce story was that weekend, the band performed a one-off show at Shepherd's Bush Empire. And I got to see that show, and I got to go backstage and hang out with the band. And at one point, Bruce cornered me right outside the band's dressing room. And he had this pitch for this movie that he was working on it was a biopic of Aleister Crowley. And he started talking about the storyline, about the narrative of this movie that he wanted to do about Aleister Crowley. And so he's going on and on. It felt like it had gone on for 45 minutes, where he's telling the story where Aleister Crowley is climbing a mountain, and it's the snow, and there's all these things happening. And it's one thing after another, and a disaster, and this Aleister Crowley things. And then after, as I said, about 45 minutes, Bruce turns to me and goes, "And then the opening credits roll." I was like, okay, so you've just described a movie in amazing detail that has gone on now for 45 minutes, and we're not even to the opening credits yet. So it was so amazing. The whole time because I barely remember what the story was, what he was telling me. It just felt like it was going on forever. The whole time I'm just thinking, yeah, Bruce Dickinson's pitching me a movie. Like, first of all, like, I have any pull to make this movie, one, and two, Bruce Dickinson is pitching me this movie idea. So it was just an incredible experience. And then I got to see the band. They were all getting ready for the show. And I remember distinctly telling Adrian Smith how much I loved his, at the time, his only solo album, which was ASAP, Silver and Gold, I think was the name of the album. And he was very grateful to hear that someone liked that solo album. But then I realized I was saying it in front of the whole rest of the band. And I don't know what the politics were at the time, with Adrian's departure after Seventh Son. And he went on to do that solo album. So I later that night, I'm going, Jesus, I hope I didn't piss off the rest of the band mentioning Adrian's solo work in front of the other guys. But yeah, that was an incredible experience. And that show at Shepherd's Bush Empire, when they were doing Fear of the Dark, I thought, I was watching from the balcony, and I thought the whole place was just going to crumble. I thought, because of the energy of the crowd, just, how they do, I'm sure you've seen it, where everyone bounces up and down on the floor, and basically mimicking what Steve does. I thought the whole place was just going to collapse under the force of that movement. It was just unbelievable. And then I overslept the next morning, missed my flight. But that was my experience in London with the band, and I'll never forget it.
Missing a flight is a small price to pay. That's awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Harrison, while we're on the topic of Maiden, did you want to jump in with a question?
Sort of a bit more general question, so a bit of preamble. I'm certainly an animation layman, but to my eyes, a lot of this stuff, especially the Maiden stuff, looks to be cell shaded, except in the Trooper video, there's these skeletons, and they look like they're like more traditionally rendered 3D models akin to what Synthetic Dimensions was doing in the 1990s with Ed Hunter. So can you tell us a bit about your animation style and process?
Yeah, it was everything was animated with Flash, except for those little skeleton creatures. And I'll come back to that. But essentially, the budget was set up for these videos where we didn't have a lot of, first of all, we didn't have a lot of time and money to spend on the animation itself. So what we decided to do, and this is while I was in London and talking with Bruce and Rod and everyone behind the scenes, is what we decided to do is just replace all of the public domain film that was in a lot of those earlier videos and insert animation in there. I didn't want to overwrite the band's performance footage, because that was always really compelling. And it's a great time capsule for some of those older videos, some of the earlier, like the early 80s videos. And so it all kind of came together such that we could do a limited amount of animation, but it was still enough to make it interesting and have it be something that the band could put on the DVD. And so it was just me and one other guy doing all of the animation. I did the Trooper and Number of the Beast, and this other animator who worked with me at the time, worked at my studio, Mark Manali, did all of the other videos. Wicker Man, he did Run to the Hills, he did, I'm losing track, Flight of Icarus, and what am I forgetting? But he did suffice to say, he did all the rest of them. And the thing with the Trooper video, just to answer your question, Harrison, is I went through a few iterations of that video. The initial iteration, and I don't know if it's ever been made public, but what Bruce wanted for the Trooper was extraordinarily political, because it had just been the 2000 election here in the States, which was very contentious. It came down to a series of recounts in the state of Florida, and it was George W. Bush and Al Gore, and I think it ultimately came down to something like 500 votes in Florida that separated the two presidential candidates. And so Bruce wanted me to do this whole thing where Eddie is just annihilating the both of them, Al Gore and George W. Bush. So the initial version of the video was, Eddie decapitating George W. Bush and stuffing Tipper Gore's heads in cannons and firing the heads, and all this amazingly brutal stuff for American politicians as victims of Eddie's vengeance somehow. And so I put all that together, but it felt too too of its time. It felt too specific to something that may not actually get released for another year or two. Like, I don't know if anyone would care about seeing Eddie fighting George W. Bush 3 years later or 10 years later.
So just to jump in briefly, with time frame. So Visions of the Beast is a 2003 DVD.
Yes.
However, these Camp Chaos videos were actually first seen sprinkled throughout some of these reissued singles the band did. Like in 2002, they had a Run to the Hills reissued single, and the Camp Chaos version of Run to the Hills was on that. We have / will cover that in our reissued singles episodes, but we haven't recorded that at that moment, so I can't tell you specifically when the Trooper video was first seen. But they were all collected and put onto Visions of the Beast, and any that hadn't aired by that point were making their debut on Visions of the Beast in 2003.
Right.
And if I may interject as well, a lot of the time, those old enhanced CDs that he's talking about, half the time they didn't work. So, I had those CDs and I never saw the videos on them because my computer couldn't run them.
Right. Yeah. I at the time, I wasn't sure exactly what was going to be done with the videos. I know there was talk about doing a compilation video DVD at the time of a bunch of their videos. But it was, when I first started to produce the videos, it was unclear. And so I was still young, and there was a lot of self-doubt. I wasn't really confident in the more political version of the Trooper video. So I did a couple of other iterations of it, and I landed on what is one of the Easter eggs on Visions of the Beast, where Eddie is fighting those little skeleton creatures, which are absolutely CG, CG models and animation. And so it's kind of a mixed media video where, a lot of the 2D hand-drawn Eddie animation was from the original version of the video, and then I just overlaid the skeleton creatures in there. And I left it up to Dave Pattenden at Sanctuary to decide which version that they ultimately wanted to use. So, but yeah, it was one of those, I think I was having a crisis of confidence in the political version of the Trooper video. So that's why it ended up the way it did.
Yeah. So Harrison, just for the record, he's already anticipated 2 more of our questions.
Sorry, I keep doing it.
So I was going to ask about how the historical and the movie footage basically made it very easy to work out where these animation pieces were going in. But the second part of that question was with the Wicker Man video, because that was unique. I mean, Flight of Icarus had that 80s CG as well, even though it wasn't historical footage, it was easy to splice out. But in terms of the Wicker Man, which was a much newer video, how did you go about working out where you would splice the footage in and how much of that existing video you would cut out?
I think it was mainly, again, anything that wasn't the band performing. I really love the energy of that video. It was that was the hardest one to do because it was their most recent video at the time. I think it was their most recent video, I believe, Wicker Man. And I just
about at the time you were being contacted, it would have been.
Yeah, exactly. I love how it was shot. I love the energy. There was as far as being an Iron Maiden fan, it was an exciting time because Bruce and Adrian had just rejoined the band, and that video really captured the breath of fresh air that was pumped into the band after a kind of a divisive 90s era for Iron Maiden. Not making any judgment calls on Blaze or anyone else, but when Bruce and Adrian coming back to the band was kind of thrilling, and that Wicker Man video captured that. And so I think I wanted to preserve as much of the performance footage as I possibly could. So anything that is non-performance footage, that got replaced with animated content that Mark Manali had done himself.
One thing I wanted to ask you, because we talked about the Trooper video, which is an Easter egg, and the only way you can get to it is by watching a music video a couple of times and then switching to another music video. It's really annoying. How much do you hate Easter eggs from the 90s?
They were fun for a while, unless they were too overly complicated to get to. But it was nice to have that kind of little thing to I don't know, to figure out, and to obviously it would connect you to the fan community as well, because everyone would discuss, well, how do you do it? I can't figure this out. How, everyone was on discussion boards trying to figure out how do you get the Easter eggs. But yeah, it was, some of them were really annoying and impossible to get to, and others were more fun to seek out as sort of, digital treasure hunts. But
I have a Batman Begins. Sorry, but I've got a Batman Begins collector's edition DVD, and on the second disc, it's a bonus disc with all the special features. How you access these features is it's like a comic, and basically you have to go around the comic looking for like bits, because you know how on the DVD you press right on the remote, it jumps to the next thing. You have to search around for these highlighted bits, and it doesn't tell you what they are. You have to press enter, and you have to wait to see what special feature runs that you found.
Well, and with I was glad that the Trooper video became the Easter egg, because as I said, that was my least favorite of the batch. I liked what I was trying to do. I liked my Eddie artwork. I didn't love the animation. I didn't love the final version of it with the little skeleton creatures. It just didn't play as I had hoped. And it was mainly, like most things, it was a budget and time consideration. There were two of us cranking these things out on a very short turnaround time. And so we spent more time on the ones that we really liked. Like, you can see that we put some elbow grease behind Aces High, for example, which I think is one of the more successful of the videos. So the fact that the Trooper became an Easter egg, kind of hidden, no problem here. I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, speaking of Aces High, I'm sorry to point out animation errors. I couldn't help but notice that in the line 10 ME-109s out of the sun, you can in fact count 12 little planes behind.
Oh no!
Behind the bomber.
Well, that was a screw up, yeah.
The previous shot shows 10 planes, but then as Bruce is saying, 10 ME-109s out of the sun, that you can count 12. I'm sorry.
That good eye. That's extraordinary. And that's the first time I've ever heard that note. And I really appreciate that attention to detail. You should have been working for us if you weren't, an infant at the time.
Maybe you can airbrush it out and match it out in post.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do a special edition where we fix that. I don't know.
Yes, the Blu-ray release. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Put in some horrible CGI aliens walking across the screen as well. Some banthas in front of the pyramid.
Oh, if I could do those over again, if I could do those videos over again, I certainly would. I certainly would, with what I know now. In fact, I was mentioning Yes earlier. I right around the same period of time, I was also hired to do some artwork for Yes, because they were taking a break from Roger Dean's cover art for the Magnification album and for the subsequent live album that they did. And somehow I got that job and did some artwork for them. But now they're doing reissues of both of those albums. And so I've done sort of rebooted artwork for both of those releases. I think they're coming out next year, Magnification and Yes, Symphonic Live. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I'd love to do an updated version of all those videos for Iron Maiden, because again, to have more time and more skills now 25 years later, I think would certainly benefit it.
So on the topic of hindsight then, Iron Maiden have released a few videos since you've done the previous Camp Chaos lot. Are there any videos of this new lot that you'd like to have a go at doing a Camp Chaos version at?
Oh, well, that's a great question. The video, the song that I'd love to see, maybe a CG animated version of is Empire of the Clouds. I'd love to see something like that. Or, oh God, now you've really got me thinking. The song that I really, really love, and in fact, I did a digital illustration for it, which is Lord of Light.
I love that song too.
Yeah, that's on Dance of Death. Am I correct? I'm not.
A Matter of Life and Death.
A Matter of Life. Okay. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I did a digital illustration of that. too weird to describe, but suffice to say, that's another one that I would love to do a full animated video for. But a lot of, the CG that they've been working with for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years has been extraordinary. I mean, whoever's doing their animation now, please keep going, because it's far beyond my skill set, certainly, and it's extraordinary. It's really well done.
Yes, I think I recall the Final Frontier video they did back in 2011-ish was pretty schmick looking.
Yeah.
I think the reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg would also lend itself to an animated video form, because there is a lot of story in that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so much. I mean, Iron Maiden is absolutely a visual band. I mean, you need that visual element to it, and obviously from their stage shows, it's Eddie is a member of the band, and to incorporate Eddie visually, the only real way you can do it is through animation. But it'd also be fun to see a really photoreal, like absolutely seamless CG version of Eddie interacting in the real world. I'd love to see that sometime. Maybe it's already been done. Now I'm second guessing myself, but yeah, if it hasn't been done, I'd love to see it done.
The best quality Eddie we've got has been on the cover of the early days DVD, but even that's a step down from actual in-person photorealistic.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we've mainly only seen him in a fully animated context. I don't think it's ever been Eddie composited into live action footage. I don't think we've seen that yet.
Yeah, you'd certainly have to make some decisions about the creative process, about, all right, what's he going to look like? How sort of cartoonish is he going to be? But on the topic of Eddies, I noticed in the Run to the Hills video, you've chosen to sort of take it in the future rather than that Native American time. Now it's, Bounty Hunter Eddie from Somewhere in Time and sort of Aliens. Given you said your love of Somewhere in Time, I'm going to ask, was that a decision that you made, or was that on the band's end to sort of feature the Somewhere in Time Eddie on there?
That was me. That was because of the Stranger in a Strangeland illustration that Derek Riggs made, where it's Eddie basically as Clint Eastwood. I thought it made sense, since Run to the Hills was sort of an Old West setting. It made sense to have Clint Eastwood Eddie in that setting. So that's how we kind of mixed those two time periods. Obviously, Somewhere in Time came, several albums after Number of the Beast. And so, but I felt as though doing animation, you can kind of make that happen. And we wanted to do it in a way that was more metaphorical to the actual lyrics of the song, and still make it apply, of course, but we didn't want to literally do cowboys annihilating Native Americans. That was not in the cards. Even 25 years ago is probably not the smartest thing to do. But so this way we did something more along the lines of, I don't know what they were, bandits, futuristic bandits attacking an alien species, and enslaving them, and then Eddie becoming the liberator of the enslaved aliens, and I thought that was a kind of a clever way to go with it. In fact, that would be my second favorite of the videos. I thought Aces High is my favorite, and then Run to the Hills is my second favorite.
I think that was a very inspired choice for the Run to the Hills video, and I really like seeing Cyborg Eddie not in the flesh, and not entirely, but in animated form as well.
That was my favorite Eddie. It's always been my favorite Eddie, the Somewhere in Time Eddie, and I wanted to do it. And there were no video. None of the videos that they chose for us to do, none of them were from Somewhere in Time. So we decided, I've got to do Somewhere in Time Eddie somehow, and so everything kind of came together that way. Yeah.
All right. I think I'll stop hogging the mic for a bit and toss it back to Mike.
Well, you guys have talked about pretty much all my notes here. Let me see. I did want to mention one thing about the Trooper, which, by the way, you have to access by playing Hallowed Be Thy Name twice and then Wasting Love. It forms the number 664. I wrote,
because on disc 1 you have to play the 6th track 3 times 666. Presumably they needed a second number. I'm not sure of the significance of 664 to to religious things. You can simply just skip through them, so you don't have to sit through all of Hallowed twice.
There you go. Cheat code for you, folks. But having lived through that era, and even before that, the censorship era, the Tipper Gore censorship era, I was horrified by the noseless Tipper Gore. what a horrifying visage that is. And I'm kind of curious though, why no noses on a lot of your characters?
Oh, so that version actually made it to the public somehow. I didn't know that was released anywhere. That's on Visions of the Beast.
That's the Easter egg on this. There's a decapitated President Bush. There's Al Gore snorting from an empty bomb. Okay. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in that video.
I tried to get it to work on my DVD copy, which is obviously an Australian domestic edition. I couldn't get it to work, so I went to YouTube to watch the Camp Chaos version. And see, Mike shared his notes with me, and I'm like, I'm not seeing any Bush or Gore here. See, I saw the Skeletons version.
Yeah, that's the one. I thought that. Yeah, I thought that was the only one on there. I had no idea that the politics one made it.
I was wondering about the Skeletons. I'm glad I wasn't asleep at the wheel there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, never mind what I was saying before about that one not seeing the light of day. Apparently it's on the DVD. So
I was wondering
how much I know.
When you said that, I was wondering if there was even a more bloody, gory version of it, but I guess that's the one.
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah. And that was,
and then on YouTube, they uploaded the sort of Skeletons version.
Yeah. And the noseless thing, that was just something I was doing with all my cartoons at the time. If you notice Napster Bad, they don't have noses. I don't know why. I don't know what was in my head at the time that I started drawing characters without noses. I think it was maybe the challenge of trying to get them to look like the person, but without their nose somehow. It was just a stylistic thing, kind of a trademark thing about Camp Chaos characters at the time. And I that may have been one of the reasons. I just thought that my personal style for Napster Bad and some of the other cartoons I was doing for Camp Chaos, I didn't really feel as though it worked in the Iron Maiden context, which is why if you look at Number of the Beast, Bruce has a nose, yeah. So that was kind of the thought process at the time. And again, a lot of decisions were made under the crunch of time and deadlines and things like that. So, but I'm glad to hear that cartoon is actually something that was on the disc. Boy,
you can get it. Yeah.
You can. I should have done my homework. Yeah.
I think that's probably why it was the Easter egg video, the politics, but
yeah.
Going back to the one that you mentioned about the Flight of Icarus, I just wanted to compliment you on one of my favorite Eddies, which is Flying Flamethrower Eddie from the Flight of Icarus single. I love that you use that in the video. And I personally felt like it was a vastly superior video. I never liked the blue-faced Nico in the cloak, which looks like that's what you chose to excise in favor of the animation. Let me see. You took all my points about Run to the Hills. And
keeps happening.
Aces High is one we've talked about a little bit. But it looked like you were mixing, sort of like you were doing another sort of, I guess what they would say, a mashup. You were mixing the Battle of Britain with the Pyramids of Giza in that one.
Yeah, because of Power Slave. And Aces High. So we thought, well, okay, we'll just do that. And somehow, and Lars makes an appearance in that video too. So so we were able to work that into the mix. And I think that may have been by request. That may have been something that I forget because it was so long ago. Bruce may have specifically asked for Lars to be in that video. So I'm going to blame him for that happening. Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, and Number of the Beast, I just wanted to comment, another one of my favorite moments, sort of an Exorcist homage, but there's a turnaround where you see Eddie on the ceiling. Love that shot. That's just great stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Again, I was very pleased with the artwork. I just don't love the animation looking back at it. It feels very primitive, very, most of the Flash animation at the time was that kind of animation where it was very jumpy and kind of staggered and not very smooth. It was very limited animation. And I think mainly because the computing power at the time really didn't allow for a whole lot more than 15 frames a second or whatever it was, 10 frames a second we were working in. So it was a little touch and go as far as getting that to work and getting that to render without crashing our computers. So the animation didn't turn out as well as I was hoping, but I was pleased with the artwork, and I really took some time on the Number of the Beast to pay full homage to The Exorcist. That's what that was all about.
I think someone of my age appreciates the animation more because, I remember it at the time. It was cutting edge. It was new. It was, this Flash thing. But I don't know, Harrison, do you have sort of a different perspective on that? Or do you also just get through the lens?
I'm particularly appreciative of this style, similar to like the Transformers animated, that sort of, I'm going to say cell shaded because that's what it looks like to me. I don't know if that's 100% what it was, but you compare that to sort of like Transformers, Beast Wars, or Synthetic Dimensions, CG stuff in the 1990s. That looks a lot more dated today than I think the Camp Chaos stuff does. Because the Camp Chaos stuff, I feel, it's a style, and apart from the occasional jerkiness, you could take that visual style and transplant it to a video today, and it would still look good. It would just be a bit more polished.
I think so. And there was a bit of a bias at the time with Flash animation and Flash Animation Studios. I think the expectation was, well, with Flash, you just press a button on your computer and suddenly everything's animated, and there it is. It's all done. And that, of course, wasn't the case. It was still, I mean, you weren't drawing frame by frame because you were reusing assets, but it was still labor intensive. It was still, I mean, you still incorporated the techniques of traditional animation. It was just all done on a computer. So it's only now that you can press a button and make animation in just a matter of seconds. So, but certainly that wasn't the case back then.
I wanted to jump to another band. I think the other music video that I was most familiar with back then was Hell on High Heels by Motley Crue.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Now, it says on Wikipedia there's two versions of this video. There's a censored and uncensored. I don't know which I've seen, but I'm assuming I saw the censored. Do you recall anything about that?
Wow, you know what? I only vaguely remember that there were two versions of that video. That was something, that was my first music video after Napster Bad. In fact, it was just a couple of weeks after I had done Napster Bad when Motley Crue's manager at the time, Jordan Burliant, got in touch with me. And in fact, it was through Jordan how I also got connected with Yes as well. He was also managing Yes at the time. But that was another thrilling event because they wanted to do a cartoon that was sort of like Napster Bad initially. And so they were in the studio recording at the time. And so I wrote up a quick script in, a couple of hours and emailed it to them. And they all recorded their own voices for this Napster. There's kind of a response to Metallica. They wanted to be sort of the opposite, the anti-Metallica. And so I animated that, and that was fun to do. But then right after that, they wanted me to do a video for Hell on High Heels, which was one of the only videos that I did where I animated it from beginning to end. I animated the whole thing. But in terms of the censored version, I know that there was maybe the devil woman was naked. That may have been it or something. Or I know at one point she does sort of, she does kind of that Sharon Stone thing where I think there was maybe a crotch shot or something, a crossing of the legs kind of situation maybe that got censored. I don't remember exactly how that all came together. It was all such a blur at the time, but it was really the idea, certainly at that period of time on the internet and with Flash animation, was the stuff that got the most attention was the stuff that went way, way over the top. And so there's some things that I animated in those early days in the early 2000s that I've long since taken off the internet entirely, just because it just doesn't age very well. So I think that was the idea behind a lot of those things.
I will say that Mick Mars looks best as a noseless Motley Crue. I think it just suits him.
Yeah. I think I made his skin green or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while since I've watched that one too, but yeah. Again, it's like looking at old yearbook photos. It really is.
I had one more question for you before I throw it back to Harrison. But you and I, we were hooked up from our friend Tim Derling from Tim's.
Oh yeah. Tim's great.
Yeah, and just like Tim, I'm a physical media guy. We kind of touched on the Napster thing earlier. I was working in a CD store in the early 2000s, and I had a customer walk up to me and say, "Yeah, I'd like you to take my name off your waiting list for all the used CDs that I've put my name down for." He had like a 20 or 30 titles that he was waiting for used copies of. And I was like, "Oh, you want me to remove all of them?" "Yeah, I have Napster now and I don't need you anymore."
Uh-oh.
So yeah. I was sort of like on the anti-Napster side at that time. And I just thought maybe we could talk a little bit about how you feel history played out since that time. Streaming is obviously here to stay, but there is certainly a solid market for physical media, and we just demonstrated. There's a video here that you probably can't find online.
Yeah. I don't know that I regret the position I took at the time. I certainly, looking back, I don't necessarily agree with myself of 25 years ago when it comes to that, because now with the benefit of hindsight, I can see where that all headed. And I know at the time, I, of course, had a copy of Napster when I was downloading, not a whole lot of stuff, but I was downloading some music on Napster at the time. And this is 1999, 2000. And it was, I think we rationalized it by saying that, well, it's like, making a tape and trading a tape with a friend or something like that. Only we're talking about millions and millions of friends and millions of tapes. So it was where the argument broke apart was a matter of volume, where it wasn't just one guy trading a tape with a couple of his friends at in high school or whatever. It was mass sharing of music that certainly ate into the pocketbooks of the recording artists. And at the time, the money was in the albums and the touring came second. Now it's completely reversed, where the money is in the touring and the album is just something that you do if you have the resources to do it.
It's an excuse to go on tour.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So, but looking back at all of that, it was, I don't, the area where I stand by Napster Bad, for example, is I think Lars wasn't reading the room as far as how to confront file sharing. I think his angst about it should have been directed exclusively at Napster as an application. But instead, Lars decided, I'm going to go after all of the people who are Metallica fans, who have loved the band and have up to that point, and maybe even through that point, financially supported the band too. And I thought that was maybe a step too far. And that's kind of the approach I took with Napster Bad, where it was not, I wasn't trying to knock the lawsuit or the anger against Napster out of Lars's hands. It was more about, well, these are your fans, and the fans are why you are the Lars Ulrich. And suing them is really a slap in the face to the people who have stood by you through all these years. So that's, I think, my approach, or that was my approach on it. But I can certainly see the colossal downside, because the music industry, as I was saying earlier, has never been the same. It's a shadow of its former self, and that's an understatement. And I got to say, I've worked in just about every subdivision of the entertainment industry, publishing, digital, movies, animation, music. The music industry, even and especially 25 years ago, but even more so now, is the most screwy of all of of the entire entertainment industry, the music industry was always the most upside down and difficult to deal with. And certainly it has taken advantage of and exploited so many artists going back 70, 80 years.
Like back in like, I think it was 1975, Pink Floyd was saying, come over here, boy, have a cigar. You're going to go far. You're going to be a star, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. I mean, The Entertainer by Billy Joel. I mean, he made record labels fortunes and was ostracized because he wrote one song that was critical of the music industry. And and it was ironic, even with those two examples, the 70s and maybe even into the early 80s was really an artist-driven period of time for music. And that really changed in the 80s. Everything became much more commercial. And then by the 90s, even more so. And then 2000, everything just was turned upside down through digital and file sharing, and then eventually iTunes and things like that. So I don't know where things would be now without those hiccups, those bumps in the road along the way. But I can't imagine that the music industry would be in any way improved had it not been for file sharing. But I think maybe music would be less homogenized now. I don't know. It's difficult to get into one of those things where I start to sound like I'm 90 years old. Yeah, music these days, those kids don't know what they're doing, but that's not necessarily what I believe. But
I suppose there is an argument to be made with the fact that albums are sort of becoming less frequent. That the quality of albums, because you're, instead of doing an album every single year, having to crank out content, basically, you get a bit more time, like particularly Iron Maiden, they put like 6 years between albums. They get time to like refine and work on what are the best songs for this album, as opposed to quick, we need 8 songs to put on a record, that demo, get that polished up sort of thing.
Yeah. I imagine that's more a consequence of, well, two things working simultaneously. The drive toward touring as the primary moneymaker, and also age. I think it's to a point where, my absolute favorite band is Rush. And as they got older, there was more time between albums, between recordings. There were some personal issues that caused that, but I think the idea was spend more time on the road and spend more time recuperating from being on the road, and then start thinking about getting back in the studio. So I think those two things working together.
So I see Hold Your Fire, I see A Show of Hands, and I see Presto.
Oh yeah.
No, I was going to compliment you.
It wraps
Star
up
Wars
around
as well.
here.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to compliment you on. I see a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. We have a Ghostbusters fan as one of our co-hosts. A lot of Star Wars. I see an Incredible Hulk. I see a Mandalorian. So I think Bob. I think you are one of us. I want to thank you so much.
I'm 54 years old, and I look like I'm living in I borrowed my 12-year-old's room to do this interview.
I'm not going to. Well, here, no, it's the same over here.
There you go.
Exactly
Perfect.
the same.
Yeah.
I want to.
And by the way, I don't have kids. It just looks like I do. Yeah.
That's mine. But Bob,
if I may, just one last question to cap this off.
By all means.
So, sort of just about all animation in general. One of my favorite things is like Michael Bay's Transformers, particularly like Devastator, like how they got that working in like 2008. So I want to ask you, I know Mike doesn't like Michael Bay's Transformers, but you can't argue with the animation quality there. So I want to ask you, out of all animation everywhere, what is something that you've seen that's just make you sit back and just go, whoa, that is awesome?
Wow, boy, that's a really good question. I am a gigantic fan of anime. Some of the stuff that's coming out, that's coming out. So some of the animation that's been developed over the last 50 years has been extraordinary. There's a series that is kind of a reboot of a series from the 70s called Space Battleship Yamato, or Yamato. I'm always mispronouncing that. But there's a new iteration or newer iteration of that series from the 70s, and it's called Space Battleship Yamato 2199, and then some subsequent series after that, some further seasons that are subsequent to that, that are just absolutely extraordinary, and some of the most insane space battles that I've ever seen committed to animation. That's just a recent example. I'm not a giant fan of CG animation, but one thing that I'm actually talking about doing, and I'm really good friends with someone who's worked on Star Trek Prodigy and a bunch of other Star Trek animation. And he and I are talking about the idea of being able to train an AI on our own animation and creating more cartoons using AI, but not stealing that from other artists, just using our own animation as the basis for it. So there's some exciting things going on along those lines. But yeah, I would strongly recommend, if you're into more sci-fi anime, Space Battleship Yamato 2199 is one of the greatest series I've ever seen in my life. If you like things like Battlestar Galactica, for example, this is very similar. It's very emotional, very action-oriented, but also very grounded with a ton of heart. And the empathy that you feel for these animated characters is genuine. And that's so hard. Coming from animation, that's almost impossible to achieve because people inherently see these characters as being artificial. And to empathize with animated characters requires a hell of a lot of skill. I mean, far more skill than I'll ever have. But yeah, that's I don't know if that answers your question, but that's one of the most recent things that I've watched that just blows me away.
No, that's a great answer. That's more or less exactly what I was asking for.
Thank you.
I grew up with the 1970s Americanized version called Star Blazers.
Star Blazers, so, yes, exactly. So did I. That was the first serious cartoon that I ever watched, where people would die in Star Blazers. And I had never seen that done in cartoon form until then. And I was always intrigued by it. And when they decided to update that series, they did it just the right way. I mean, you'll be amazed. The music cues in it are pulled directly from the 70s, but the animation and storytelling is much more cohesive and streamlined and more captivating to an adult audience.
I will put that on my watch list. Absolutely.
Yeah. Strongly recommend. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned to you earlier offline that we are going to go through the entire track list of this and tick off all the videos. You can certainly stick around for that if you want, but you've already shared an hour of your time with us, so that's up to you.
I'd love to talk more Iron Maiden. I have to go, but I'd love to come back and just talk about the band some more, or whatever, if you need a third again to just shoot the breeze about Iron Maiden, I'd love to do it. Yeah.
Okay. So Harrison, we're going to have to do some brainstorming. We're going to figure out another episode we can get Bob back on for. How's that sound?
Excellent.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you want to plug before you go?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know what? I just started a Camp Chaos YouTube channel.
Yeah.
There are only a handful of videos up there right now, but it's I think it's youtube.com/Camp Chaos. I'm going to double check on my other screen here. Because yes, I didn't come prepared with the full name of my YouTube channel. Maybe these things are, I should have done that homework, but hang on just one second. As the page loads, I'm going to go and look. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm sorry. I got the name of the YouTube channel wrong. It's youtube.com/Camp Chaos Cartoons.
There you go.
So
I do know that if you Google
search
it,
for
if you Google it, you'll find it. It's easy to find.
Yeah. Camp Chaos Cartoons is the name of the channel. Yeah. Thank you.
Camp Chaos Cartoons. We'll put that somewhere in the artwork, right, Harrison?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bob. I look forward to talking more Maiden with you. Up the irons, and we will talk to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you both. I really appreciate this. This means a lot to me.
Thank you. Meet you.
Take
care.
Thank you.
Great meeting you.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, Harrison, shall we proceed with part 2 of the episode? going through all these music videos.
I haven't like listed out all the tracks. I only like make notes on the ones where I've got something to say about. So I'm going to need you to be the one who's reading them
so
out.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the name of the tracks, and if Harrison has anything to say, he will say something. But we begin on disc 1 with the very first Iron Maiden video, which was Women in Uniform.
Yes, indeed. The Diano era kicks off with Women in Uniform, the only cover on here. And yeah, well, on one hand, I'm glad the band didn't forget it, or rather ignore it, because I know they weren't all fond of it. But on the other hand, it's weird to see a cover kick off an Iron Maiden disc. And the next track, if I have my
if I just may say something real quick, is that Women in Uniform is also the only video appearance of one Dennis Stratton.
Yes, that indeed.
And then we go into Wrathchild.
Yes, now that's the second and final Diano track, if I have my memory correct, which means that none of the early singles got videos. Granted, this was before MTV and they were an up-and-coming band, but this Wrathchild is taken from Live at the Rainbow, the VHS. And it's funny that Wrathchild got the video, even though it was the B-side of a double A-side with Twilight Zone. But it's simply possible that they had video filmed of Wrathchild for Live at the Rainbow and said, yeah, put this out as a video, rather than filming another one for Twilight Zone.
My only comment here is that Wrathchild was not a video that I ever saw as a kid on Much Music. I didn't know it existed until the DVD came out.
It may have been a retroactive add-on, Visions of the Beast. Let's put Wrathchild on here, even if it never aired.
That's my thinking. On to Run to the Hills. Nothing to say?
I don't have anything to say for a little while.
Okay, so we have Run to the Hills. Some of these videos, the Camp Chaos versions, are on the bonus features, but then we have Number of the Beast, Flight of Icarus, and The Trooper, all of which there are Camp Chaos versions on this DVD. Then we have the two from Power Slave, 2 Minutes to Midnight and Aces High. Now, in real life, there were two versions of the Aces High video. I distinctly remember one with the black and white World War II footage, and I remember one that was all strictly live on stage. There's only one version on here. But then we go on to Bob's first video that he ever saw, which was Wasted Years, and it's a magnificent video, mostly a collage of eddies and photographs from the Live After Death inner sleeve, along with some sort of black and white live in the studio footage of Maiden. Another great video, Stranger in a Strange Land, live on stage, featuring the inflatable Eddie.
Well, filmed live on stage. It's the studio audio.
Yes. In most cases here, these are filmed live on stage with studio audio, a couple exceptions.
Yes, if I have my information correct, this is from Sheffield, 1986.
You are probably right. But interestingly enough, there were two music videos from the Live After Death album, neither of which are here. We move on instead.
Well, they're on Live After Death.
Yes, that's why. But they were music videos, and to me, they're part of that lineage.
I have something to ask. So one of them was probably Running Free, yes, because
Running Free and Run to the Hills.
Single. Was that the edited audio as well, without the crowd interaction on the video?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, so that's something that should have been on here, because that single edit of Running Free is not the most readily available thing these days.
Believe me, when I first got the album, I was like, "Oh, this is not how the song goes." But then we move on to the blah blah blah. I'm brain farting. Seventh Son era, and Bob had an excellent "Can I Play with Madness" T-shirt. We also have The Evil That Men Do and The Clairvoyant. We also have Infinite Dreams.
The Clairvoyant was a live single recorded at Donington 1988. However, the video is the studio track over filmed footage of Donington 1998 with fake crowd noise pumping.
Yeah. Which I'm sure that just grinds your gears, right? Is that one of your pet peeves?
Well, it would be nice to have actually got the filmed footage of Donington with the audio of Donington, because the video of Donington hasn't been released in any form other than this video.
But in this case, this is a music video from 1988, and studio tracks sold far more albums than live ones. So that's why there is a studio track with the fake live. I could have done without the fake live cheering.
It's not the last fake live cheering we'll get, let me tell you.
Infinite Dreams is next. Any comments
from
there?
Made in England 88, which is the correct audio and video from where it was released as a live single.
Then we move on to No Prayer and the debut of Yannick Gers with Holy Smoke, filmed on Steve's farm, and Tail Gunner with Fake
teeny guitar.
Oh, it's such a great video. Now, we did talk about it a bit during our No Prayer episode, but it is a super fun video for an album that really kind of needed some fun. But yeah, Yannick one time
looks something like this, just a little bigger. It's a little inflatable guitar he plays.
And Yannick actually said in an interview that I have, he said, "It's the best guitar I ever played." But Tail Gunner, I'm sure, grinds your gears because it's a lot of live footage with crowd noise.
Well, I hate the song to begin with, but Tail Gunner wasn't even a single and it got a damn video.
Now we move on to disc 2, and I don't remember ever
seeing. Well, we have
music.
the disc 1 bonuses to go through. So first of all, Dark, live at Rock in Rio. It's awesome to have. It's an awesome version, and in particular, it's good to have the Rock in Rio track on here because Rock in Rio is being long out of print. So for a lot of people, this is the best and only way they're going to be able to get footage from that show at a decent price. Next, we have.
One footnote to add to that is that there's only 2 tracks in here that you can watch in 5.1 surround sound, and that's one of them.
Yeah, it's the 2 Rock in Rio tracks. On here from Camp Chaos, we have Aces High and Number of the Beast. Then we also have Future Real Football, which is Future Real, the studio audio over filmed footage of Steve playing soccer, or Steve and the Maiden crew playing soccer slash football at the games they played on the Virtual 11 tour. And I love this so much. Steve's a damn good player. For those who didn't know, he had to choose between music or playing for West Ham. And he chose music, but he certainly kept his love of football up. And damn, he's a good player. Even as he was getting older, he could still probably run rings around me.
Some shameless self-promotion here. If you check out the Grab a Stack of Rock YouTube channel, we have a video from Much Music 1988 with the Iron Maiden football team playing against the Canadian team featuring guys from Much Music and Alan Frew from Glass Tiger. And Bruce Dickinson actually wrote about that encounter in his book. Apparently, Alan Frew left the field with an injury, a groin injury,
an undisclosed injury to his testicles, I believe it was named. And the final bonus for playing track 6 3 times in a row, you get Man on the Edge, the pratfall version, which, unlike the regular music video, is instead the studio audio over basically footage from stuff like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, all these old-timey comedians.
Which has nothing to do with the lyrics. Then we take the disc out and put on disc 2. I don't remember there ever being a video for Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, but apparently there was. Then we move on to the Fear the Dark album with Be Quick or Be Dead, From Here to Eternity, and Wasting Love. Now, at this point, this kind of music was not being played on Much Music very much anymore. You had to tune in during a very specialized time slot at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon for half an hour. And if you're lucky, they'd be playing a Maiden video instead of new metal. Right, newer metal, I should say. So Be Quick or Be Dead's the only video I ever saw as a kid. I was kind of disappointed with the videos from Here to Eternity and Wasting Love on this. They're live in the studio and not that great, not that exciting. Then we have Fear of the Dark, but not the same
and
one.
Hallowed Be Thy Name. Both live singles from Sorry. The videos are both from Donington 1992, which, by the way, is the only DVD release of any of that Donington show you can get. It's these 2 tracks. However, the singles were from Helsinki and Moscow, respectively, the audio for the singles, because they were live singles. But the videos are both video and audio from Donington 1992.
So exclusive to this DVD.
DVD exclusive. You can get them on the old VHS.
Yeah. Moving on to the Blaze Bayley era, we have Man on the Edge. Again, a video that we really never saw a lot of, and the live video for Afraid to Shoot Strangers.
Oh, yeah, this is awesome. My favorite version of the video. Funny, this wasn't even a single. It was a B-side, and it got an awesome video. It's basically footage from the Gulf War intercut with the band on stage. And let me tell you, this is pro-shot X Factor footage. This stuff is rare.
Yeah.
The only other video this has footage from Sao Paulo in 1996, which is my favorite, one of my favorite shows from the X Factor. So here's hoping that Maiden have something in the can that may or may not be released.
Certainly that was one of the biggest shows from the X Factor tour, if not the biggest.
The only other video that has Pro Shot X Factor is Lord of the Flies, which I believe is next.
Yep, that's
which
next.
Has crowd noise pumped in. And sometimes I like to just go back to these videos and watch crystal clear footage of Blaze Bayley on stage and just think about what could have been if things went differently.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, things did not work out for Blaze, but we do have valuable footage here. Not so much with the next clip, which is Virus. We talked about that on our Best of the
Beast room episode. And it's green.
It's a room and it's green. It's so 90s. It's so grunge and it sucks. I'm sorry. The Virus video sucks, but much, much, much better is one of my personal favorites, The Angel and the Gambler. Now, this has a lot of animation in it. It's Blaze and the band interacting with aliens. It's very, very much an homage, I think, to the Stranger in a Strange Land single cover with the aliens, and very much a Star Wars homage as well with the cantina. But I think Angel and the Gambler is a fantastic video. What do you think?
It's also the first appearance of some Maiden branded beer.
Oh, is that the case?
Blaze picks up some from the bar. It's not the same Trooper beer, obviously.
No.
It had something else on it, like I can't remember what it had on it, but it was definitely Maiden branded beer. It had it was something to do with one of their song names. But yeah, even though the synthetic dimensions, 3D CGI is a bit dated, it's still a cool video.
It's
obviously,
not
Steve wins at cards because Steve is the boss.
And it's not a standard deck of cards, by the way. It's a really funky deck of cards. Future Real. Any thoughts about that one?
More pumped in crowd noise, this time very loud. This is the only Pro Shot footage of the Virtual 11 tour we have, even though it is the studio track over video. Once again, sometimes I like to just come back to this and be like, damn, I wish we had more of this. But funny, some of the shots in this video are from Iron Maiden, the song, because you can tell because there is the big inflatable Eddie behind Nico, which only comes up during Iron Maiden.
Interesting. Speaking again from personal experience, this is 1998. These music videos were not getting shown on television anymore. This was basically for an online audience. If I remember correctly, Angel and the Gambler is one that I watched on an enhanced CD because there was just no TV station playing this stuff anymore.
Oh, to briefly go back to Man on the Edge, sorry. There was a Man on the Edge enhanced CD B-side, which was Man on the Edge live video, which I presume was Man on the Edge with crowd noise pumped in and footage of the X Factor. That's not on here. That's only on what was it, the Future Real or one of the Angel and the Gambler CD singles. I still don't know even what that video even has on it because I can't find it.
Yeah, that's again,
but it's not on here.
That's something we were talking about earlier with Bob. Like sometimes these enhanced CDs are unplayable for some of us. But winding down the track list here, we have the 3 tracks from Brave New World. The Wicker Man, which we touched on earlier. Bob loved that energy. It's a really cool, again, an homage to The Prisoner in spots with Rover or Rovers making an appearance.
It is a bit dated. It does look very 2000s because it's like a bit desaturated. There's a lot of bloom on the brighter parts, but the energy is good.
Yeah, I still like it, even though now it's harder for me to see it.
I'm not saying being dated is bad. I'm just remarking on it.
It's harder for me to even see it as dated because at my age, that's recent history.
True. Way back in 2018.
Way back. Out of the Silent Planet.
Yeah. So this is cool. It is the studio cut over live footage, but it's cool because we know that they played this song live and we know they filmed it. It's not cool because I want to see that live video somewhere. They could have put it on as a bonus here because it wasn't on Rock in Rio. They have live footage of Out of the Silent Planet and the Fallen Angel in the can, in the vaults, and it's staying there, and I don't like that.
It's not necessarily staying there forever,
it's
but we get your meaning. Final track on the track listing there, the main track listing is Brave New World live from Rock in Rio, the other song that's in 5.1.
Not a single, but once again, cool because for the longest time, this was all the Rock in Rio I owned. So for the bonuses, it's all Camp Chaos, Icarus, Hills, Wicker Man, and then Trooper is the Easter egg.
Yeah, and I don't think I have anything else to add to that. Bob was very thorough in his discussion. Harrison, we always rate these things at the end of the day. and I'm going to go with 5 out of 5 for Visions of the Beast. Aside from the fact that there's a couple of things that could have been included that aren't, aside from the fact that I don't like Easter eggs, I think this is so above average complete for a band of Maiden stature that it's worth the 5 out of 5. And we may as well just show the inner sleeve as well, because that way wrong piece. That way you can see
can't reach it, but I have a different DVD where it's the inner. It's different because it doesn't have the slip cover. It's all printed on the DVD insert.
I find stuff like this annoying. It talks on the back here, but it has interactive menus. Well, Eddie gives you the finger if you push one thing, and I don't know. Like, to me, that's juvenile and it's not very Iron Maiden, but whatever.
It's a good Eddie set. Has pictures of topless women in his apartment.
Yeah, like it is what I would say juvenile. I think I thought so back then as well. But this is a great value DVD to have, to get almost everything of music videos.
I know I should be rating it as a music video compilation, but if I'm going to watch video footage of a band, I'm not going to watch the music video. I'm going to watch the concert, the live footage. So I can't give it. This is a 3 out of 5 for me, basically. It would be a 2.5, but the bonuses are cool enough that I'll put it up to a 3.
Okay. So
I can't remember the last time I put this on ever, basically. Well, maybe the last time I wanted to watch Afraid to Shoot Strangers live or Donington live, because,
I can tell you that until we did this interview today, I haven't watched this since the mid-2000s. Different reasons from you, though. When I watch music videos, I tend not to watch these DVD compilations. I tend to watch my old VHS videos because they have all the cuts where I remember them being. I push start there and I push stop there, and it has bits of the commercials and bits of the VJs talking. So when I want to watch Iron Maiden videos, I tend to go for my VHS copies, even though they're much worse quality, but just because they scratch that nostalgia boom, the nostalgia itch for me. And that's it. That's the only reason. But it is good value. It is good value.
Undoubtedly.
And these things should be archived on a permanent media because, as we said earlier, online, you might not be able to find these at any given time. Bob didn't even know that Trooper video existed, but it's out there. It's here. And that's why physical media matters. So, Napster Bad. That's how I will end this episode, by saying Napster Bad. Any last comments, Harrison?
No, just to say that was a great episode. Bob was awesome. And next up, I do believe we will be covering Dance of Death.
I think so, although we'll just allow for a margin of error because we're starting to lose track of where everything goes at this point. There's so many things, including singles and compilations and all this stuff coming up. We have a full plate of Iron Maiden. We are not even close to being done 50 years of Iron Maiden yet. So strap in, hold on. We got a lot more metal coming your way. Thanks for watching, everyone. And thank you to Bob. Check out his Camp Chaos Cartoons YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time. Up the irons. Thanks for joining us.